So that does it for this Team Olympus segment. There's going to be a few more encounters with Olympus as we go forward in this run. So now we're just going to exit the base. And one of the few times in this run we're going to be using Fly. We actually don't use Fly all that much. Only 2 or 3 times. We're just going to return to Treader Town, and then we're going to enter Mount Press, which is the area that we tried to get to before we got kidnapped. So the first thing we'll do is just take the center real quick. So this next segment in Mount Press is very long, and we're going to really make use or optimize our PP management here. So this is the section of the run where we're going to use that max ether we picked up earlier. I'll explain a little later on as to where we use it. So at this point where we have 35 wing attacks, 10 high jump kicks, 20 home claws, and 10 rock slides. So we're really going to have to manage this PP really well, so we're ideally going to be using moves that will KO the Pokemon in one hit as much as possible just to conserve PP. So the first few trainers, we're actually going to be using a lot of high jump kicks. So you'll see to start I set up with the home claws, and I high jump kick the first 2 here. Ideally, we want to see at least once, maybe even twice in a few of these fights, we want to see self-destruct from the Gravelers we fight. So we face a few more Gravelers, 2 more Gravelers, I believe, in this segment. And them using self-destruct actually saves high jump kick PP and actually will allow us to save a turn in a later fight. Obviously, we need to be careful with our health, and a critical would do a lot of damage. So yeah, this section of the run is not super interesting. There's a lot of fights, a lot of mandatory fights. Very straightforward method of going about them. I'll just point out any differences as we move forward, as we move through them. So this Manoon here, we actually have to high jump kick it. Seems like a little overkill, but Rock Slide isn't a guaranteed one-shot. So it's just easier to high jump kick that. This fight can be quite scary, so we're going to save here. This guy's got a number of Pokemon which can deal a lot of damage. So this Clang does have an electric type attack. So I do have to set up, so we'll get 1 turn. And that's Discharge. It's not Stab, but it still does quite a bit of damage. The next is Magneton. It can have Sturdy, and it also has electric type moves. So we want to hope that it doesn't have Sturdy, and in this case it didn't. But that time it didn't use an electric move, but still did quite a bit of damage. We'll finish it off with Wing Attack. And the last poke is another Clang, which doesn't pose any threat. So you can see we've used a lot of high jump kicks so far. We've used 7 of them already. Luckily, before we get a heal coming up, even though we do get a heal quite a ways later, we're not going to need too many more high jump kicks from this point onwards. This Eevee is a range, doesn't always die to Wing Attack. This next Pokemon Spinda, we have to set up a Hone Claws on it, and it can be quite annoying. It's got a number of annoying status moves and stat lowering moves. So Teeter Dance is the one that it confuses. In this case, I try to fight through it. I'm going to look into perhaps setting up on the Eevee instead. I remember the Eevee has some nasty moves as well. And luckily here I snapped out of confusion and am able to one-shot the Darmanitan, no problem. So this next fight coming up here is another fight with Gravelers. So we're gonna hope that we get Self-Destruct from the first one. The worst case scenario is if it doesn't self-destruct turn 1 and then it has Sturdy and then it self-destructs turn 2. That's the worst possible situation. Especially if it hits you with something else. Like Smackdown first. And that's exactly the case I was talking about. Get self-destruct turn 2. Doesn't really save a turn at all. It saves as a turn actually because it's sturdy, but it's not the best situation. So in Mount Press we're going to be picking up a lot of levels. I think we entered around level 56, 57. We're going to come out of this at level 72. So we're going to be picking up a lot of experience here, which is going to be very useful for our next gym. These two wing attacks were a mistake. Can't remember why I did that, but I should be using high jump kick there. So if you remember earlier, we picked up a Swords Dance TM. We actually do naturally learn Swords Dance, but we're not going to teach it here because we need Hone Claws, because Hone Claws gives us the accuracy boosts to help us hit the high jump kicks and the rock slides we need. We are going to need Swords Dance a little bit later on, and we'll get to that when we get there. But essentially we're going to be getting rid of high jump kick at some point, so the need for accuracy boosts is going to be lowered quite a bit. So this Audino, if I saved high jump kicks, I would be high jump kicking this to save a turn. And normally I would, but because I used wing attacks earlier on that Graveler, I can actually high jump kick this Audino. I think that's what I was trying to do in this case. I was very lucky not to die there. I entered the fight with not very much health. And we do a heal because there's a chance of taking quite a bit of damage in the fight later. And interestingly, I didn't high jump kick that. 2 Hone Claws are needed to take down the Audino in one hit with wing attack, but also so that Electrode would die in one hit to Rock Slide. So we do need to set up the 2 Hone Claws there. This fight's pretty straightforward. He's got 3 fighting types, and we can just roll wing attack for all 3. No need to set up. The last one is a Hitmon top. It can have Intimidate, in which case wing attack would not one-shot, so we're just hoping to not get Intimidate and save that turn. So in this case we got it, so we're just gonna wing attack twice. Unless I critical. But the Hitmon top can't do much, so it's not a huge deal. It's just a slight time loss. Another rare use of strength in this run. We're not going to use strength that often. I saved before this fight. It's not necessary to save, but lead is a flying type, and we do need to set up. So ideally, we want to avoid getting critical. But he missed, so it's fine. So again, I'm trying to. I typically use Hone Claws if I need the attack boost, or if I have to use Rock Slide or High Jump Kick 2 or more times. 1 or 2, definitely more than once, sometimes more than twice, I would use it. Because the chances of hitting more than... Well, the chances of hitting 2 Rock Slides is 81%, so the chance of missing 1 is... At least 1 is 19. And that Hone Claws actually allows us to one-hit this Delcatty with Wing Attack as well. So, Hone Claws showing its versatility here. So here we're going to teach Waterfall to Horsey. We could have maybe done this on another menu. Probably would have made more sense to do it on a healing menu earlier, but no big deal. We don't really do anything else in this menu other than teach Waterfall, so I'd have to probably move that into another menu just to save a little bit of time. So we got a couple Waterfalls to navigate. Couple trainers we can dodge here, another Waterfall to climb. And at the top of this waterfall, we're going to encounter our first free heal in Mount Crest. So we're going to restore all of our PP here. We didn't use that much so far, but this next section, until the next nurse, is actually quite long. We're going to almost run out of PP, and this is where we're going to use our Max Ether. So I'll point that out when we get there. Seeing Sucker Punch there is really good because you don't take any damage because you've used Hone Claws, and Sucker Punch only does damage if you're going to be using an attacking move. And since I normally have priority because I'm faster, I get a free another 2 turns in a row essentially, which is quite good. So we're going to hope for that. Yeah, moving forward is whenever there's a Pokemon that knows Sucker Punch that we're going to be setting up on. So here we're really just seeing the power of Hone Claws and really seeing the high speed and high attack stat, and also the use of stab moves on Hawlucha. We're just able to one-hit everything with a little bit of an attack boost, even though Wing Attack and Rock Slide aren't, by themselves, super powerful attacks. This fight's a little bit scary. We have to set up on the Pachirisu. It does no discharge, and almost always uses it, so we have to make sure we're fully healed here. And sometimes it doesn't die to Rock Slide even after a setup. So in this case it didn't, but luckily we got the flinch. We could High Jump Kick, but we need to save High Jump Kicks for later. And Rock Slide is quite favorable. And unfortunately, we missed the range on Wigglytuff as well. So this is one of the fights I kind of want to reroute a little bit, potentially setting up twice or using different attacks. But the only attacks that would kill would be high jump kick, and we need as much of those as possible, so setting up twice might be the best play, although we're definitely going to need to be careful about our health. This next fight is pretty scary, we're going to save. We just one-hit the Mr. Mime with Wing Attack because it's a Psychic type, it does quite a lot of damage. We're going to instead set up on the Abomasnow, which is part Ice, and obviously Ice is super effective, but it does less damage than Mr. Mime does. So we're unlucky to get Ice Shard twice. Ice Shard is the Ice version of Quick Attack. But we'll one-hit the last Pokemon, so no big deal. This next fight is also quite scary, so we're gonna have to save and heal here. We're dealing with more Psychic types. So this Grumpig uses typically one of two moves. It either uses Psyshock, which is super effective Psychic move, or it uses Power Gem, which is a Rock type move and does neutral damage. We want to see Power Gem ideally, because it doesn't do that much damage, and it's not a stab type move. That time we got one of each, which isn't terrible, but we definitely don't want to be seeing Psyshock twice, because there's a chance it could crit, and you could die right away. So here's an interesting move selection. I'm using High Jump Kick, which is a fighting type move on a Psychic type Pokemon, and obviously that's not very effective. As it turns out, High Jump Kick does more damage than Wing Attack, because the base power of High Jump Kick is 130, and the base power of Wing Attack is 60. And so High Jump Kick's power will be cut in half to 65, and that will mean that it does more damage than Wing Attack to a pure Psychic type Pokemon. So Wing Attack is a range there. High Jump Kick, I believe, might also be a range, but it's more favorable. And we don't really want to be setting up more on the Grumpig. This is a free one-poke fight, one-shot. So kind of similar to that Tyrogue earlier, very easy. This trainer's kind of interesting, his dialogue. He's actually based on a real-life mountain climber, George Mallory. He says exactly the same things. This fight is pretty free, just set up once and pretty easy one-hits. So this next section of the run is kind of annoying because we have to deal with hail. So every turn, hail deals damage to every Pokemon in battle that's not an ice type. So that will be kind of annoying. This fight's a little bit scary, but I've managed to get a good strat for it. So I'm going to obviously heal and save because I can take quite a bit of damage. Similar to that Mr. Mime earlier, I'm just going to wing attack the Alakazam right off the bat rather than setting up, because Alakazam is pretty powerful and can deal quite a lot of damage. And instead I'm going to set up on the Jinx. Which, even though Jinx is Ice and Psychic, it doesn't tend to use Ice or Psychic moves all the time. It'll sometimes use Body Slam, which doesn't do that much at all. And since we have the Limber ability, we can't get paralyzed, so that works out quite well. It also knows Avalanche, which is super effective, but it's not guaranteed to use it. So I got lucky and critical the Reuniclus. I believe I actually now Hone Claws twice on Jinx, so that Reuniclus is a guaranteed kill. So I got a little lucky on that fight. The next fight's very easy. 2 wing attacks. Not much to talk about. It's important to note that here I'm taking hail damage every turn, even though I'm one-hitting everything. And so I need to be mindful of that as I'm going through the fights, because there's certain fights where I'm going to take more damage than others setting up. So really having an understanding of how much hail damage you're going to take versus how much damage you're taking from setting up, very important to keep in mind. Note I'm also using repels here because this snowy area does generate encounters. This fight can either go really well or not so well. So here's where we're going to use a lot of high jump kicks, because we've got a lot of bulky Pokemon here and we just need to get through them really fast. Interestingly, even though that Intimidate occurred, and this Mawile used Iron Defense, it's still a one-shot. Which really shows how powerful. It would have killed without the critical. So, but that Intimidate's going to kind of bite me a little bit, I think, in the rest of the fight, because the other Pokemon I don't really have a type advantage over with High Jump Kick. It's just the last one in the fight. The next two, the Skarmory and the upcoming Schizzor, will go down in one hit. So Fortress here is interesting because Fortress normally has Sturdy, but because there's hail, it can be essentially one-hit KO'd because it has taken a little bit of damage from the hail. And unfortunately there, because of the Intimidate, it didn't die in one hit, and it also used Explosion, which did a lot of damage, but luckily did not kill me. So I'm going to have to heal before the next fight, even though the next fight I don't have to set up, and they're all one-shots. I'm just going to take too much damage to survive. And here's where I also use the Max Ether. I'm going to use it on High Jump Kick. So get back the 10 PP. Another very straightforward fight. We're just going to set up a couple times. I think just once, actually. Usually that Excelgor actually uses agility. This time he used U-turn, which isn't actually that bad because we're going to have to defeat this Galvantula anyway. But because after it uses agility, it's actually faster. So we're actually going to be saving a turn here. But unfortunately we got Sucker Punch. So we didn't really, I don't think we saved any time at all. Shuckle's another Pokemon that normally has Sturdy, but it will go down in one hit high jump kick because it takes scale damage. So that does it for the Hail, which is great. Now we're back to fighting Team Olympus Grunts. These fights are all pretty straightforward. So this section is easily the most boring part of the whole run. Not a whole lot going on. So here's another situation where we're going to make use of High Jump Kick's power. We could Wing Attack the Slowking, but it's not guaranteed to die. And High Jump Kick has more power, even if it's not very effective, versus a regularly powered Wing Attack. So in that situation, it's safer to use High Jump Kick. This Floatzel can do a fair bit of damage, so it was quite risky not saving for this fight, or healing for this fight. But we got away with one there. In this situation, I decided to risk it and go for the Golem. And I actually reset it here, so I could have revived. Probably faster to revive. This is one of the few hiccups I made in this run. I don't believe we're going to be losing out too much if we take the death and then revive. But we are going to need all of our slaves to be alive very soon. So it makes sense to reset there, or it makes more sense to heal before the fight to avoid dying. And because of the randomness of the abilities of opposing pokes, that Golem didn't have Sturdy the second time around. So for this fight, I used the Hone Claws mainly for the accuracy, as opposed to the attack boost. So in this situation, I elected to use high jump kick. I could have used wing attack. It would have killed. It would have been a little bit faster too, because you don't get the super effective text. This fight I'm going to save before, because in this fight I'm going to use one rock slide without using Hone Claws. And it's possible the critical could kill, so being a little bit safe here. So this is the last grunt we have to fight. So we've only got 2 fights left in Mount Press, both of which are one of which is quite difficult. The other one isn't too bad. Here's a situation where detect's actually not that big of a deal because we actually are setting up, so that worked out quite well. So we're going to take this opportunity to grab another free heal here from the nurse. These grunts don't fight you. The next fight is quite difficult. It's another double battle. So this is the first double battle we're going to fight with our rival. So he's going to be fighting alongside us. The thing that sucks about Jake's Pokemon is they're really, really awful. Like, they're just horrendous. They don't do anything helpful in this fight. They do very little damage. Sometimes they don't even do damage. So yeah. Anyway, I'm sending out Bellsprout to start, again, because of the Intimidate from Stantler, which in this case he had it, so that worked out quite well. And unfortunately, Ninetales has Drought, so fire attacks are boosted. And we're hoping again that Bellsprout goes down easily in one hit. Very unlucky there to take a hit from the Stantler coming out into the fight. And you can see there, you can just compare the water gun damage from Feraligatr versus the Zen Headbutt damage from the Stantler. This Ninetales does know Hypnosis. Luckily, it used it on Feraligatr, so we don't really care so much about that. And again, we're going to try to use Rock Slide as much as possible in this fight, just because it does damage to both of the opposing pokes. In this case, we took them both down. So this section, these two are pretty scary. Gallade is part Psychic, so it does know, I think it knows Psycho Cut. And the Solrock knows Psychic, so we need to kill one of them right away. And we're going to deal with the Solrock first. It does a little more damage. And Rapidash is also quite scary, again, because the Drought is out, so fire attacks are boosted. So I'm taking a little risk here. I'm actually going to go ahead and try to kill Rapidash with Rock Slide. I failed to do so. Luckily, I got the flinch. And Gallade didn't kill me with Psycho Cut, so that worked out really well. And Feraligatr did something slightly useful and defeated Rapidash. So here I think I'm going to take a heal. My health is kind of low. The Gallade does a fair bit, but the Larvesta doesn't do it quite as much. So here I elect to go for the Gallade, finish it off. It does quite a bit more damage than Larvesta. So that works out quite well. And we're playing a little risky here by not healing. But we needed to take down the Lunatone, so really, we don't have a choice. And now, luckily, we are dealing with two pokes that will both go down to Rock Slide quite well. So overall, this fight went really well. Usually I have to reset a couple times because either Feraligator's dumb, or I get criticaled, or the opposing pokes only target me. We still have one more left, actually, and that's an Espeon, which will go down really easily to Wing Attack. So overall, pretty good fight. So this is the harder of the two fights that are left. The next one isn't too bad at all. So we actually get a forced heal here, which is nice. Unfortunately, we can't do without the heal with the nurse, so we're gonna have to do that. Switch Hawlucha back to the top, and now we've got a pretty tough boss battle coming up here against Zeus, who's the leader of Team Olympus. So here we're going to equip the Sharp Beak, take off the Lucky Egg just for this one fight. The Sharp Beak is very, very essential to winning this fight. So Zeus, he leads with a Ninjask, and if you remember, Ninjask is a bug type. A Ninjask can either do Protect or Air Slash. We ideally want to see him Protect, but we're going to go ahead and try to hit him with Wing Attack. We didn't get Protect that time, which is okay. He goes down in one hit. Next we have the Electros. Here's where we have to hit a high jump kick without setting up. And we hit it, so we're all good. If I missed, I probably would be dead. We have to get up one Hone Claws in this fight, and we're going to do it here. We could have done it earlier, if the Ninjask had used Protect, but we didn't get that. And we're very lucky to get a miss from Metagross as well. Metagross does do quite a bit of damage. He can't kill us. He might be able to kill us with a critical. Actually, in that situation there, we actually got, we didn't hit the range. so Metagross didn't die in one hit, but usually he will die. And now that our accuracy is boosted, we don't need to worry about any misses. So Frostlass is easy. Next is a Gengar. This is the Pokemon where we need the Sharp Beak for. So we're setting up twice, or setting up with Home Claws, and the only attack we can really use on this Gengar, the best move we can use, is Wing Attack. And he's also Mega Evolved, so he's beefed up his stats. And using that one Home Claws plus the Sharp Beak gives us enough attack to kill the Gengar in one hit. So in this fight, if Ninjas were to use Protect, I would then obviously not hit the Wing Attack. Then I would move my attack to Home Claws. He would usually use Baton Pass to switch into Electros, and then I've got the accuracy and attack boost that I can hit the Electros in one hit, and then obviously again maybe set up on the Metagross later. So here we've got a forced battle with Victini, which is a legendary Pokemon. In the Sigil Hall and full game speedruns of this game, we actually catch the Victini with the Master Ball that we collected in the Team Olympus hideout earlier. And the reason we catch Victini is we pick up an HM move in the Sigil Hall section of the run, which only really Victini and Unknown, I guess, if we caught an Unknown earlier, those two Pokemon are the only ones that can learn that attack. So, in theory, I could catch the Unknown in Wonder Cave, but we're forced to fight Victini anyway, and Victini easily goes into a Master Ball, whereas Unknown isn't guaranteed to go in, because we only have Pokeballs at that point. So it's safer to try to go for the Victini. So here's a bit of a cutscene. And so now that we're finally dealt with this section of the run, dealt with Zeus and Team Olympus, we're then free to move on and challenge for the last couple of gym badges. So luckily we get a free warp out. So we're going to use Fly here again. We're just going to fly down to Ladoga Town. We're going to do a little bit of backtracking through the eastern route. Here, do a quick save in case I hit an extra trainer. But the trainers at this point, I'm pretty over leveled, so they don't pose too much of a threat. So here we can actually get into this northern route because it was originally blocked. I'm just going to dodge a few trainers here. And then we're in this section called the Thunder Underroute, and we just simply have to run through this and make our way to the exit. Don't need to pick up any of the items here. There are some Max Ethers in here, but we don't need to pick them up because we'll see later we can actually buy Max Ethers. So the big shopping trip of the run is coming up pretty soon. And we enter Blackfist City. So Blackfist is split up into two sections. There's the residential area and then there's the main town area. We're just going to fly through the residential area. And we're going to go into the Blackfist department store. So every Pokemon speedrun has a big shopping trip where you spend a lot of money on most of the items you're going to need for the late game. Unluckily, the big shopping trip in this game occurs pretty late, so we don't actually get a chance to buy some really good X items early on. We can buy them now. So here I'm going to pick up some full restorers, pick up some full heals as well. Also pick up, you can actually buy ethers and max ethers in this game, which are really good for healing PP, and we don't need to take centers as often. So we're going to pick up a few ethers and max ethers. Unfortunately, we can't buy elixirs. There are actually no elixirs at all in this game. We're also going to pick up some held items, because they're going to be really useful moving forward. We're going to pick up an expert belt, a metronome, and a wide lens. Not the scope lens, but the wide lens. And we're also going to pick up 4 focus sashes. So, quickly, the expert belt boosts all super effective type moves, the wide lens increases accuracy, and the metronome boosts the power of an attack if it's used consecutively. We're also going to pick up some X items. We're going to pick up 3x attacks, 3x accuracies, and 2x to special defense, and that's it. So not too many X items in this run. And again, also the focus sash. If held, if Pokemon is hit with a one-hit KO move, it will survive on 1 HP. And we're going to be abusing that in the next gym leader fight, which is coming up very soon. So the next gym here is a Psychic type gym, and this is the first gym where we actually have a type mismatch. Obviously we have a Fighting Flying type Pokemon. So here we're going to have to do a little bit of a modification to our strat. So first of all, we're going to put the metronome, which again boosts an attack if used consecutively. We're also going to give focus sashes to all of our slaves, and I'll explain a little later as to why we're doing this. But you'll see in a few fights why this is essential for winning this fight, to do this. Interestingly, Roggenrola already has the sturdy ability, so I actually didn't even need to buy 1 focus sash, so I could have done without 1. But out of pure habit, I did that here. We're actually going to teach a new move here. It's X Scissor, the TM we picked up at the last gym, and it's an attacking bug type move. We're actually going to be replacing Hone Claws. We need Wing Attack and Rock Slide, and High Jump Kick moving forward. And Hone Claws, now that we have X items, we can actually use, we can get rid of Hone Claws. It's pretty expendable. And we need the X Scissor to be able to handle these bulky Psychic types in this gym. So the first thing we're going to do in this fight is just set up with an X attack. Ideally we'd use a Hone Claws, but we can't have Hone Claws right now, so that's a little bit slower. And then now with boosted attack, plus the fact that we're using the metronome, we actually will have enough attack and power on X Scissor to one-hit all the Pokemon in this fight. This Wobbuffet doesn't always die in one hit to X Scissor, and so we're hoping here that he doesn't use counter. But luckily we got the range. Wobbuffet's got quite a bit of HP, so it isn't always guaranteed. This gym is very similar to Blaine's gym from Gen 1. We actually have to answer a Pokemon quiz. In the case that we answer the question wrong, we still have to fight the trainers, but we just get warped to the beginning of the gym, so it's essentially just a time waste in that sense. This fight we don't need to set up on, we're just going to go ahead and attack everything here, so we're going to X Scissor the Grumpig and the Executor. Here we need to use High Jump Kick on the Bronzong, because it's going to do the most damage. And we got a little unlucky, we missed the range there, but we can finish him off with Wing Attack, so no big deal. If we had taken more health, or if he had critical, or damage from the first fight, or if he had critical, we would have probably had to reset. Or revive. Unfortunately, we can still one-hit the Behem because we switched moves. Actually, it doesn't matter anyway, we would have high jump kicked regardless. This trainer here, we're going to actually set up an X accuracy. Because we need to hit a few high jump kicks in this fight. We actually don't use too many more X scissors for this fight or the fight after. Actually, I guess the fight after, but this fight definitely we don't use any. So luckily we can wing attack the last two. We don't have to worry about hitting any not very effective moves. Although the accuracy is boosted, so we can save some X scissors for this fight. So we have, I think, one more junior trainer to go, and one more quiz question left, and then we're on the gym leader. This fight we take a little risk and go for the non-accuracy boosted rock slide. It just doesn't make sense to set up an X accuracy just for that one fight. So it's better, it's faster just to go for the kill there. The last two go down easily to X scissor. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the next fight, which is our gym leader, Demetri. This fight is, even though we're fighting just one guy, this fight is a double battle. So we actually have to fight him with two of our Pokemon against two of his. So this is the reason why we get the focus sashes. It's because we're always going to have a slave in our battle with us, and for some reason or another, he always attacks, his Pokemon always attack the slave, even though they have a super effective move against you, against the Hawlucha, they always attack the slave. So what we're going to just do is we're going to set up a couple times in this fight, allow our slaves to die, and we have to be able to, because we can only kill one Pokemon at a time because we're using X Scissor, we need enough slaves to be around so that by the time we get to the end of the fight, we're not taking any or at all damage from his Pokemon. So I'll explain that here. So this fight I'm going to set up with a couple X attacks. And unfortunately here we got Earthquake from Claydol. So you can see the Focus Sash allowed Horsey to live. Claydol using Earthquake isn't great because then Metagross is taken to a certain health where he'll heal. That takes a little bit more time. So you can see that the opposing pokes are only attacking my slaves. So here's the main problem with this strat, and it's, there's really no other way to get around this, is now we actually have to go and kill one of these Pokemon. And because experience is shared, and the proportion of experience you get is relative to your level, as you can see, Bellsprout got about 9 times more experience points than Hawlucha, and he's going to gain a lot of levels and try to learn a lot of moves. and Bellsprout does learn a lot. So this is the one drawback. There's no other way to get around this fight if you're using Hawlucha as your main. But it's pretty safe, and not too much can go wrong. So ideally we'd want to send out, probably just want to send out Bellsprout first, because he learns the most moves. So the Metagross we used High Jump Kick because it does more damage than X-Scissor, but the rest of them we're just going to be using X-Scissor. And again, Bellsprout's continuing to gain levels. We've got one slave left. This guy will probably gain quite a few levels as well. So typically you'd expect on this fight for your slaves to gain a lot of levels in two instances. In my Sigil Hall speedrun, I actually had Victini as one of my slaves, so he starts off at level 50, so he doesn't gain that many levels in this fight. So pretty much half this fight is spent watching Pokemon level up. So I'm not sure, but here we might actually get a heal from Demetri. Oh no, we didn't there. So Sigilyph is the only Pokemon in this fight which takes more than one hit to kill, and unfortunately here we've lost our last slave, but he's only got one Pokemon left, or two left, I guess, if you include Sigilyph. Because we have the Metronome equipped, it's just better to just use X-Scissor a bunch of times, and eventually we'll take down everything, no problem. I think in this situation it's probably better to use Rock Slide, so I think in future I'll just end up using Rock Slide on Sigilyph. I think at this point, because of the X attacks, I'm probably going to one-hit it with Rock Slide. But here I'm just forcing Demetri to run out of full restores. So that fight could have gone a little bit better, but overall not too bad. And of course we have to cancel a bunch of evolutions, because the evolution animation actually is extremely long in this game. So we skip all of that. So that's 7 badges down, 1 badge to go. So now we actually have to go pick up a specific TM we're going to need to get to the next section. So we're going to go to the Safari Zone here. And it's the same thing as before. pay for 30 Safari Balls for 500. And this guy says we can now throw rocks at Pokemon to lower their health, which is quite barbaric, if I do say so. So here we're going to set up do a little bit of menuing. We're going to use a Super Repel, put on the Expert Belt. So we're going to need the Expert Belt for the next section of the run. We're also going to heal to full. And the TM we're picking up is Rock Smash. So we're actually going to need to teach Rock Smash here. So I mentioned earlier, and luckily we can also quit the Safari game, which is really nice. We don't have to backtrack. I mentioned earlier when we're trying to catch our Slave in Wonder Cave, we need specific Pokemon that can learn both Strength and Rock Smash. And so, Rug and Roll obviously is one of them that can. So we're going to teach him Rock Smash. And this is the only rock in the whole run we need to smash. Even including Sigil Hall and the post-game after Sigil Hall. We don't need to use Rock Smash anymore, other than that one instance, which is kind of a waste. There are obviously probably other situations in the game where you do need to use it, but in this game, in this run, we only use it once. There's quite a lot of other optional areas. I'm saving the game here because there's a spinner. It's a guy on a bike, and he moves very quickly and very randomly, and it's very easy to get hit by him. Luckily, I didn't there. This guy also is kind of tricky to dodge, so I saved beforehand as well. So now we're in our next town, which is Caspian City. There's a couple things. One thing we need to do here before we head off to the gym, and that's go pick up the Dive HM from this guy. And so, pretty much from here on out, we're going to be using Horsey a lot as an HM slave. And now we enter the gym. Now, importantly, all of our slaves are dead, and that's actually extremely important for this run. And I'll explain a little bit later. So this gym's a fire-type gym, so again, we don't really have a type advantage. We do have Rock Slide, which is really good. Also, because there's actually a drought effect in the gym, so fire-type moves are boosted by about 50%. So we can't really afford to set up at all in this gym. And so we have to hit a bunch of not very effective or not very accurate rock slides in a row. And so that's why I'm going to be saving before every fight here. So we're really going to be using rock slide a lot in this gym. This Torkoal is not a range. It never dies to rock slide, so we have to hope for the critical there. Luckily, we didn't get it. And we can just finish him off with Wing Attack. And we need to high jump kick this Meg Cargo. So we have to hit 4 90% accurate moves in a row in this fight. Got the burn there, which is a little bit unlucky. So these trainers, they're all mandatory. So now what I'm going to do in this menu is I'm actually going to heal off that burn, obviously, because we can't be burned. We need to be using physical attacks. And we're going to teach two new moves. We're going to teach Swords Dance, which I mentioned earlier. We pick it up quite a bit earlier in the run, but we really need it here. And we're going to teach it over X-Scissor. We're not going to be using X-Scissor anymore. And then, probably the most important move in the run, we're going to teach Rain Dance. We're actually going to teach Rain Dance over top of the High Jump Kick. Because we don't need High Jump Kick anymore in this gym, and as it turns out, we don't really need it anymore in the run. And so Rain Dance is a really important TM, and I'll explain a little bit later why it's so important. There, I was just checking my PP, and it's pretty good so far. So now our moveset's quite a bit different. And again, we're just going to be throwing down a bunch of rock slides. These two trainers here, they both have one Pokemon which we can wing attack. So here's the Blaziken. But again, these are very risky fights because if you miss, you can get wrecked pretty hard by fire-type moves. So far, so good. We've hit all 7 of our rock slides so far. So 1 trainer left before the gym leader. Here we're going to make use of the ethers we just bought, so we're going to restore our rock slide PP. We're going to need a lot of those. And of course save. So this fight here isn't a guarantee. The first Pokemon isn't a guaranteed kill with Rock Slide. So we'll see if I do it here, but sometimes I set up a Swords Dance. In this case I didn't. Luckily I got Extreme Speed turn 1, so if I didn't, if that Arcanine had Intimidate, probably wouldn't have killed with Rock Slide, and then I would have been able to get a second turn off. But I think in the runs I'm doing now, I actually do set up Swords Dance or an X accuracy on the Arcanine. But no big deal. So for the next fight, I mentioned earlier that all my slaves are dead, and that's a good thing. The reason that being is this next fight is a double battle. We're fighting alongside Jake again, who again is useless, and you'll see that he doesn't help at all in this fight. And one of the Pokemon that we're going to be facing knows Roar, and we do not want him to use Roar against us, because then we're doing a lot of setup in this fight, and we're going to lose all that setup if we're forced to switch. So here I'm just going to heal up my PP again with an Ether, and also heal the full. This is the most difficult gym fight in the run. It could either go really well, or either go really poorly. So this is Miranda. So leading off are Camerupt and Houndoom. So Camerupt knows Roar, Houndoom knows Fire Blast, and we also have Sunlight up. So here's where we use Rain Dance. So now we're actually making fire moves not very powerful, which is the only reason why we're using Rain Dance, is just to make fire moves weaker. And now we need to start setting up. We need to set up 3 Swords Dances and an X accuracy in this fight. And we also need to do all of that while the rain is still up. So unfortunately I got burn turn 1. So that's going to be a problem because I'm going to start taking burn damage. It's okay right now because I'm only using Swords Dance. But when I start attacking, I need to make sure I'm not burned. So that's going to come into play here. And as you can see, the 2 opposing Pokemon, they'll attack either me or one of Jake's Pokemon really easily. So we ideally want Jake's Pokemon to live as long as possible. Unfortunately, they're all really awful. They don't do a lot of damage, they don't have the best defenses. We're hoping this Aggron also has Sturdy, but in this case it doesn't matter because it got hit by Stealth Rocks. We're also hoping that Miranda uses Full Restores, which is kind of a counterintuitive thing to think, but we don't want her Pokemon attacking us. So every time she heals her Pokemon off, that just buys us some time. So Jake's already down to 1 Pokemon, which is really awful. So I think here I actually do decide to heal. Because the health is really low and I could get hit by a Fire Blast from Houndoom. Which could be a problem. So here the rain stopped, so because I had to heal, I lost the chance to set up the X accuracy. So sometimes I would just go ahead and start rock sliding, but I haven't gotten the accuracy up. But I'm in a situation where Jake's Pokemon aren't all dead yet, so I can afford to use Rain Dance a second time, so that I'm able to not take too much damage from the Fire-type attacks, and be able to set up the X accuracy. So that's what I'm going to do here. And now that all of Jake's Pokemon are dead, I take all the damage here. Luckily I got Sucker Punch instead of Fire Blast, so that was really, really lucky, and also Stealth Rock from Camerupt. So those are the 2 best situations I could have gotten. And now that my accuracy is boosted, and my attack is maxed out, I can then start Rock Sliding. So unfortunately Camerupt didn't die there, so it's a range to die. Sometimes he dies, sometimes he doesn't. But we got the flinch, which is really good. And because I think Jirachi used Future Sight, Camerupt took the Future Sight damage. So overall, this was an extremely lucky fight, I would say. Because then Miranda didn't heal, and because Emboar doesn't die to Rock Slide, in 1 hit, it wastes time. So unfortunately this Emboar doesn't also die in 1 hit because it's part fighting, and it does know a fire or an electric type move. Luckily it also flinched, so this fight is going extremely well. It knows Wild Charge, which is super effective against me. It also has a fire type move, which is quite good. And you can see that Miranda again just uses Full Restore, which buys us a bit of time. We really don't want to be taking any hits from Fire-type Pokemon now, because Charizard's Mega ability is Drought. So now we just need to get the last 2, and they both go down easily, because Miranda's used all of her healing items, and Volcarona goes down in 1 hit too. So that's the 8th badge done. Pretty scary fight for sure.